Hello and welcome to the DunsPlayFest podcast, where we talk to some of the people who make our festival possible. DunsPlayFest is a yearly 9-day festival at the beginning of May in Duns in Berwickshire that celebrates new writing and champions emerging artists. We're bringing brand new theatre to the borders. I'm your host, actor, writer and DunsPlayFest trustee Jamie Mean, and in each episode I will be talking to one of the writers, volunteers, trustees, performers or crew members who help make DunsPlayFest happen. This is the first of 3 special episodes which we recorded live at DunsPlayFest 2026. So, without any further ado, let's go on with the show!
We're rolling.
Hello and welcome to the DunsPlayFest podcast live. We are here at the Cadet Hall at DunsPlayFest 2026. This is very exciting. And today I am joined by Jane Houston-Green. Thank you for coming to talk to me today, Jane.
Hello, Jamie. I'm pleased to be here.
Brilliant, thank you. Just to start off with, we'll kind of go back to the beginnings. What first sparked your passion for theatre?
Well, I kind of started in dance originally. And I will give this as a little bit of background because I sort of feel as though it's that whole thing of just keeping going.
Yes.
You know, I started doing ballet classes when I was about 6. But there wasn't a lot of money in the family, so I had little red ballet shoes and red shorts and a white t-shirt, whereas all the other girls had their pink leotards and their pink tights and their pink. So I stood out like a sore thumb because I was also a bit taller than everybody. So it was very hard to sort of integrate. And then my aunt, my mother's sister, said that I would get too fat and too tall. So I gave up. And then when I went to my secondary school, the PE teacher used to do dance lessons as a sort of lunchtime activity.
Yeah.
And she was holding a dance competition, and me and my best friend Patsy, we did a little duet to the Beatles' Come Together. And we won, much to my surprise. And then my gym teacher came up to me afterwards and she stuck a brochure in my hand for Bretton Hall, which was somewhere you could train in performing arts. I think it's shut now, but it was a reactive thing. And she said, no, you have something on stage and you should do something more with it. And the school I went to at the time, that was the only career advice I was ever given. And anyway, I was involved with somebody, and he was quite controlling, and he didn't approve of dance. So I didn't do anything about it. And I went off to Africa to teach English as a foreign language.
Okay.
And when I came back, I thought, well, I want to go and do more now.
Yeah.
So I applied to do English and drama at Glasgow and at Goldsmiths in London. And London, it was next to the Larban Centre, which was also a dance institute, which you probably know.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if I go there and do English and drama, then I can maybe trot across and do some dance classes as and when. Anyway, I thought I'd also just stick in an application directly to the Larban Centre. And they interviewed, called me up to London, stuck me in a second-year class. Now, I've never done any modern dance at all.
Okay.
And I'm stuck at the back of this class. And the first exercise was bend over and now hands on the floor, bend one leg, bend the other leg, and I couldn't see what anybody was doing because I was at the back of the class and I'm now bent over looking at the back wall and I couldn't see the teacher and I couldn't see anybody else. So I stood up and sort of watched a bit and then tried to do it. And in my interview afterwards, they said, why did you do that? And I said, well, I couldn't see what anybody else was doing. So I thought, well, I will watch and then see if I could copy it.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was obviously one of the better answers I gave, and they gave me a place, much to my surprise. So that's where I went for 3 years, and I came out with a degree in dance and drama, dance and movement.
Okay.
And then I went up to Arts in Fife, and I worked in Fife with Antics Community Dance, and with Dundee Red Dance Company, and I did a lot of choreography and classes in the community. And then I was in a production called They Fairly Mack You Work at Dundee Red, and I was working with some professional actors, and they said to me, why are you in dance? Why don't you do more in theatre? You know, you should be an actor. And I went, okay, maybe I should. So I then thought about doing some retraining, and I moved my dance over to being a movement director.
Okay.
And then started doing that and went to the Scottish Youth Theatre,
Yeah.
doing that across Scotland. And then gradually, through time, I started, I went and worked with the Marley Drama Theatre in St Petersburg, and then I was cast in a Hull Truck theatre production called The Office Party, and then basically just focused on theatre since then. So
Fantastic.
that's just a little bit of background of how things, things come across your path and whether you grab them or not. And then you make them what you will. But it's about encouragement. Who gives you those bits of encouragement to make the most of what
which makes such a difference.
And we all need that.
Yes, absolutely. So at that point, you've decided to pursue a career in acting. Now, since then, you've performed on stage all over the world. You've performed in Russia, America, Zimbabwe, and all over the UK. What have been some of the highlights from all of that? And how do audiences across those different countries differ, do you think?
I've got quite a lot of anecdotes, but I will try and narrow it down.
Okay.
When I went to St Petersburg, because the Marley Drama Theatre came over to Scotland, and there were people from all over the world who actually came to do this 2-week residency.
Yes.
And then from that, I got invited to go and work with them in St Petersburg. So I'm over there for 3 weeks, and I'm doing classes, and I'm learning the clarinet, and they were doing 2 productions. They were doing Broken Jug, and they were doing a Eugene O'Neill. And in the Broken Jug rehearsals, now the director of Marley Drama Theatre didn't speak English. When he was over here, he never spoke a word of English. He had a translator with him all the time.
Right.
So I'd been up late talking to people till about 3 o'clock in the morning. I thought, well, I'll go in and see them doing this production. And I walked in just to the back of the theatre, and there's Lev Dodin with his lighting designer, sort of down over there somewhere. And I tripped in the back, and there was this big debate about the jug on the table, because in Russia they take a year to put a production together. And yes, they may be doing 2 productions like they were there at the same time.
Yeah.
So they'll do 1 production for 2 days, and then they'll change the set, and then they'll do the other one.
Yeah.
But it's done with everything. It's not, it's with all the props and everything. And then they go away on tour. So that's kind of like how the year progresses.
Yeah, okay.
And Lev Dodin was really scathing of anybody trying to put theatre on in 3 weeks. Anyway, there was this big debate about the jug, and I thought, I was tired. So I just thought, how you just nod off for 5 seconds. And I thought, nobody's going to notice, it's the dog. And suddenly, Lev Dodin turns around and says, there is my Jane, and she is falling asleep. Anyway, I came out and I spoke to Volodya, one of my friends, and I said, oh no, Lev Dodin saw me. So I dropped off to sleep for 5 seconds. And he said, are you sure, Jane? And I said, well, yes. And he said this to me. He said, are you sure, Jane? And I said, yes. And he said, but he doesn't speak English. And it was fascinating to see how the theatre company was run.
Yes.
It was very,
very different.
It was almost how you imagine Russia to be in a microcosm in the theatre company.
Right,
How they controlled people. I can tell you lots more stories.
Yes.
I kept a journal for all the time I was there, so I wrote them all down. At some
Yes.
point I'm thinking of writing that all up.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. That's a great read, yeah.
So I went on a train from St. Petersburg through to Berlin.
Yes.
For 2 days on this train. And lots of stories I could tell. But I'm going to run out of time. But another thing is when I did the office party with Hull Truck, it was a #1 tour around the UK. So you go into a place for a week and then you do lots of productions for a week. And it was 4 months I was with the company. And been on the road for a year, but I came in at the 8-month mark and went to America with it. So there we are over in New York, and we're doing the production. And of course, you get used to where the audience are going to laugh, but the Americans have a very different sense of humour. So they would laugh at the places that you were expecting. So that was also quite difficult to now run through, because you're waiting for the pause, no laughter, so you kind of drive it through, and then they laugh at somewhere completely different.
Well, you're not expecting a pause there.
British audience wouldn't laugh at all.
Yeah.
That was quite interesting. And then in Africa, Yeah, it was interesting. You know, I was working in the white theatre, I was working in the black theatre, and some of the black actors came into the white theatre. Very few white actors went into the black theatre companies, which were coming up. But I kind of worked between the two of them, which again was quite fascinating as to, in terms of the different cultures, what they were buying into and how they would relate to some of the plays that were put on in the white theatres versus some of the ones which were done, and a lot of new writing coming up by black writers.
Yeah.
And in that, I remember I was casting something where I had to say the word sotsi, and sotsi means thief. And people came up to me and said, "Oh, you said that just perfectly, Jane." So, oh, okay, is that all you've got to say about the play? So I actually said the word thief, right?
Maybe not the best reflection.
No, they enjoyed the whole thing. They were rowdy. It was in like a big rondel with a thatch roof, and it was packed. You know, so whereas you have the sort of traditional theatres that you would find in this country, places like Harare and Bulawayo and Mutare, it's like the Black Theatre Company had this big rondel, and very, very well frequented by other people. And they obviously enjoyed it. So, yeah, sort of 13 years there doing theatre. And also working with some film through UNESCO, helping to encourage directors there, up and coming directors with casting and with script development.
It must have been really rewarding,
yeah, it was. And I was also doing some film as well. I did a big film shoot for National Geographic.
Okay.
And I had to play the part of Gertrude Caton Thompson. And it was an hour-long episode all about the Zimbabwe ruins.
Yeah.
And Gertrude Caton Thompson put together the first all-female archaeological dig. So she was one, and she had two other women with her. And she was asked by the Royal Geographical Society to go and check who had built the Great Zimbabwe ruins. So I had to play that part. And I came back and I didn't have a copy of it. So I thought I would look and see if I could get one. And then on eBay, they were all over the place, these little DVDs of, you know, Africa, the Lost Kingdoms. And I thought, okay. And then I realised that it had been given away free. You know, in the Daily Mail, when they used to do those free DVDs, there were 6 DVDs in this set, and they'd obviously been giving them away. And I thought, gosh. And I hadn't even been in the country, so that was quite fascinating.
So there's out there now.
Yeah, you can probably go find one.
Yes, there you go. So you mentioned some film work there. You yourself are now an experimental filmmaker. How did that come about?
I have to thank Jason Moyes for that. Richard Ashrown at Alchemy at the time, I think he got some funding to try and help people to become interested in filmmaking in the community across the Scottish borders.
Okay.
So the Moving Image Makers Collective was set up.
Yeah. And
I was been working on a production called Towards Flodden, which is a commemoration of the Battle of Flodden for 2013. And I've been working with local writers here. And we didn't get the funding. And I had spent the better part of 2 years off and on trying to make it all happen, and I felt quite crushed.
No wonder you would be,
I felt very disappointed for the 8 other writers that were working on this, and you know, we were looking at warfare more generally than just the Battle of Flodden. You know, it kind of, the writers had gone from different avenues to explore writing in other countries and at other times, and I thought it was quite a. It was also around the time of the commemoration of World War I, so it had relevance. And I had got it booked in all across Scotland, and then we didn't get the funding. And feeling a little crushed, I started to go to Moving Image Makers just to watch some films. And then I'm sitting there watching, and then Jason Moyes turned over to me and said, "So Jane, when are you going to make a film?" And I said, "Well, I don't make film, I make theatre." And I thought, okay. So I did my first little film called Wash, which was a reflection of how they do the washing in Mumbai, where there's huge big laundry, and you can go down and see it, and it just covers this huge acreage of where everybody sends their washing in Mumbai, and it's all colour-coded, so it's quite fascinating to see in the sunshine. And I've done a little bit of film of that, so I incorporate that into this film of how we do our washing here, and the rainy days and the icy days, and how they do it out there. And then I did another little film called Ripple, and then that was curated to go into Albany Film Festival. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I should explore this a bit further. So I did. And what I like about it is that you have something tangible in your hand at the end of it. You've created something that's there, you know, and I could show it to you now.
Yes.
And it would be the same as when I made it.
Yes.
You know, it's whereas theatre, the excitement of theatre is it's ephemeral. You never quite sure,
Yes.
you know, how it's going to go that night. The link between the audience and the performers. So it's a very different genre.
Yeah.
And again, I was kind of quite amazed at the sort of success that it's sort of taken off. You know, I ended up submitting it to festivals and then Beyond the Roots, which was a big project that we did with Moving Image Makers Collective over at Rubenslaw, and yeah, that was selected for the Child Art Award in London, so I had to go and put it down and put it up on the South Bank in the Oxo Bar
Fantastic.
and it was these 7 bands hanging down with the film projected onto
Yeah.
them. And it's in this old building on the 3rd floor, and it was really nice to just watch people come up and integrate with it, and then sort of like speak in a different way and be able to use that footage.
Yeah.
And then my husband's kind of got rather used to, if we go anywhere, I'll suddenly find something, wait, I need to stop the car, I need to get out and film that. And it's just a different way of working, being creative.
Excellent.
But again, I would reiterate for people out there is that you never know what's going to come along that can spark you, that might just inspire you to go off in a slightly different tangent, and to embrace that so that you can explore different aspects of your creative.
Something like that you would have never thought of getting yourself into, and then all of a sudden that's taken off.
Yeah. And in actual fact, I've been focusing on theatre and writing at the moment, but I've got about 5 films that I really, really want to make. And I have footage, I have the ideas, and I need to do some voiceovers and some writing for it, but I need to focus on that.
Now you are the artistic director of Chasing the Borders Theatre Company, which you founded.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I came back from Zimbabwe in 2007, and I needed to be a carer because I had my son who was 12 at one end, and I had my elderly parents at the other. And I came back here and I felt a bit lost actually, because you know my home and all my belongings I had to let go of, and I was back living with my parents, and it wasn't a very easy time. And then I started working back at Borders Youth Theatre, which I had been doing before I left, and then I thought I kind of would like to make more theatre myself, and I was aware that lots of people wanted to explore writing for theatre, so that perhaps this could become an avenue for people to embrace other people. And it's hard though to get funding.
Yes.
It's hard to get funding. And there are times when I sort of felt as though I was just sitting at my kitchen table trying to do funding applications, and I wasn't writing, and I wasn't necessarily out there acting, and I wasn't making films, I was just writing funding applications. Which if you get more often than not, fine, but when you kind of get maybe one every 5 or 6 times, it's hard work.
Yeah.
I know some people look on it as being very creative in itself, but I just ended up being a bit frustrated with wanting to go and create stuff firsthand.
And not being able to, having the means to do so.
And that's what I've been focusing on at the moment. So don't know in terms of treading the borders how much more we'll do collectively out there in the community. Don't know at the moment. It depends what happens.
Yes.
Be open to what might come along, might cross your path, make things happen, but also listen for what's around you.
Now, you've been a mainstay of DunsPlayFest since its inception back in 2019. In what ways have you been involved in the festival?
Well, I had written a play called Where Has Joshua Gone? And John knew about that, John McEwen, and then he asked if we would put it on in 2020. And then it was cancelled, obviously, with COVID. So then he came back to me and said, could we do it, do something online? And I said, well, no, not really, not this play, because it's about a couple who go off to West Africa to go on a sort of backpacking trip around West Africa. And at the moment, nobody can go anywhere. We can't get flights anywhere. And I thought, people are going to struggle to buy into the illusion that you're creating.
Yeah.
Because I think, well, how do they get there? So I said, I don't think that's going to necessarily work. So I said, but maybe I'll go write another one. And I did it as a where has our adventure gone, that you're now stuck at home and you can't do these things. And so I wrote that. And then that went out online. And then the next year we did Where Has Joshua Gone as a live theatre performance. And then Wilson's Tales asked me to do an adaptation of one of their tales, so we did The Apparition of Flodden. And then they asked me if I would bring in sort of some of my films, which I did, so that was then. And then last year, Tom Murray wrote me the part of the Queen.
Yes.
It's the Queen's back in the cupboard. She's not very happy about being back in the cupboard. But,
she come out again?
I don't know, she's quite insistent, yes. She's a lot of work.
Yes.
So her red petticoat is folded up and the crack is in the cupboard, and I don't know. She's been out 4 times now, maybe that's enough.
Maybe.
And then the new play, which we're doing this year.
Yes, I have.
Yes. The Unnoted Memories. That came out of a chat that Wendy Barrett and I had when she was in a sort of difficult place, partly because she was dealing with having to sort out belongings from her mum who was going into a care home, and I had to spend about 2 years of my life doing that as well, with my father dying in 2017 and moving my mum to a small property. A very, very difficult, distressing time. And again, the kind of creative work had to go on a bit on the back burner, which is where it was so nice that still I slotted in DunsPlayFest. Because if you didn't have those opportunities to be creative, it was like, well, life's just awful.
Yeah.
But we were talking about that, and I said, well, maybe we should write something about the stress of that, because everybody is going to have to deal with that. Okay, I think historically, if you go back far enough, you had the big mansion houses. Well, when somebody died, the next generation just moved in. And if they didn't like the picture on the wall, they stuck it in the attic. And people further down the pecking order, they were in little cottages, they didn't have very much stuff. You might, take an afternoon to end up looking at the stuff. But we've acquired, through time, so many possessions. And what do you do with those? And what's important to keep and what's not important? What do you shove out the door? What's got the memories? But it's also, this play is not just about that. It's about these 2 sisters and the relationship between them and the different lives they've led and where they are now. And again, being older women in society, it's like, well, what else can I still do with my life? What is society going to let me do with my life? Because of the concept that is put on, particularly older women. And I thought maybe explore that. But they also find something which blows their world apart. And it's then how do they cope with that?
This is really interesting. I'm very excited to see it.
Yes,
we'll maybe sort in a clip in the edit.
I can't have you coming round for Sunday lunch knowing those sorts of intimate details about my husband's personal bits. Or mine, for that matter. Okay, it might be a bit weird. Didn't you find ways to sort of add a little spice to your relationships? The longest one I had was, I don't know, a bit more than a year, so we didn't.
We're going to get to the last few questions now, the big deep questions.
Oh gosh, haven't I been deep enough?
We're getting deeper. So why do you think that theatre is important to wider society?
I think the arts are important to people, generally. Whichever particular avenue you want to discover and explore. For me, theatre was the fact that I enjoyed the performing arts. I was diagnosed 4 years ago as being on the autistic spectrum. And you could say, and I did say to the people who were assessing me, I said, well, what difference is it going to make to my life now? And they just turned around at me and said, you can be kinder to yourself. And I thought, Oh, okay. And what it's done is put a perspective on the things that I have battled with in my life. And I think part of that, when it comes to theatre for me, is that I'm playing a character.
Yeah.
I'm not having to be myself. I can now hide behind that character. And that's a kind of nice place to be, for me personally.
Yes.
And I think in terms of everybody has got life experiences, they've got things that they might feel a passion that they want to share, and they just find a means of going out there and interacting with people to try and create something which can be performed live for an audience to be able to be involved with. Is theatre has been my particular drive. I think that the arts and creativity are important. I think it's an expression of one's soul.
Absolutely, yes. We have a small audience here in the Cadet Hall, but nonetheless, I'm going to open up the floor to some audience questions. Anyone has one? Yes?
What would you say has been your best experience in theatre?
In theatre, which has been quite hard. Yeah, I enjoyed playing Helen in The Power of Prayer. That particular show was put on by Rooftop Promotions, which was a black theatre company in Zimbabwe. And essentially, it was written by a German playwright, and she had taken a little news snippet out of the paper, which was about a car hijacking. And this woman who was having her car stolen asked if she could pray for the car before they took it away. And they let her, the car hijackers. But then they obviously felt so bad about it that they returned her car to her the next day. And this was the premise of the story. So my character, Helen, has had her car taken, and she's asked to pray for it. And then it was explored in the play that she was then invited to go and pray for everybody else's car. And then because she's now doing service to these other people, they then ended up giving her canisters of fuel, because at the time of the play we were going through the farm invasions and through the economic meltdown of Zimbabwe, and fuel was a real problem. Petrol stations would run out regularly, you would go on queue for hours and hours and hours, and I mean hours, to try and get a full tank of fuel. So these two women, because it's two of us, and get this garage full of canisters of petrol, which is probably very, very, very unsafe, but they don't know what to do with it all. And meanwhile, the three car hijackers, because it was a split stage, we're putting them out of business, because nobody wants to go and steal a plane. Everybody's had their car prayed for, and we talk of that around the whole of Zimbabwe, and yeah, it was a huge success.
That sounds really fun.
It was fun. It was fun to do. And I did Helen, all in an Edinburgh accent. So I'm going around, and one of the performances we did was actually at Wangi Safari Lodge, and there were no tourists because of the farm invasions. They shut down half of the hotel. There were very few of the sort of middle class who could afford tickets, because a lot of them had left. So we went and did it in the actual community centre with people who worked on in the hotel and on the actual reserve, and we had 200 people in this corrugated iron community hall, and they were engrossed. And I sort of thought to myself, here I am doing an Edinburgh accent, and these people are just loving it. It's like it was a fun. Yeah, there's just so many. I've enjoyed a lot of theatre shows.
Unfortunately, I think we're out of time there. I've got to scoot on stage. But,
sorry, I rabbited on.
No, it's okay, that was very fascinating. Thank you for talking to me today, Jane. It was brilliant. Yeah.
Well, I'd encourage everybody to keep going.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. This episode of the DunsPlayFest podcast was recorded in the Cadet Hall at DunsPlayFest 2026. It was recorded by Luca Best, hosted and edited by yours truly, and the guest was the brilliant Jane Houston-Green. I'd also like to thank all of the team in the Cadet Hall. That's Paul Young on sound, Kev's Beadle on Lighting, and Hattie Spence and Lily Puden front of house. A massive thank you as ever goes to our amazing festival producer Sarah Best, and to our brilliant board of trustees. I'd also like to thank Stacey and David, all of our audience who came to watch these interviews in the Cadet Hall, and you for listening. We'll be back soon with the next episode, which features Louise Stevens from Playwright Studio Scotland. See you then.